So, welcome. We're really glad you're here again. And Bill is mainly going to talk about the microbiome, how important it is.
Well, what I want to talk about is gut health. And of course, the microbiome is a big part of it. Yeah. So basically, our gut health, it's like the root of wellness. It is so important.
Yeah, that's a good point. And my interest is food. What foods do we eat to have a really healthy microbiome or gut? And the main thing is to eat a whole food plant-based way. Now, what is that? Whole food plant-based.
You don't like the word diet, do you?
No. So, what that is vegetables, veggies, which I love, fruit, which I also love, whole grains, and protein. Where's the protein? That comes from beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds.
And surprisingly, dark greens
Yeah,
can have a
lot
significant
of
amount of protein. Yeah.
dark leafy
Yeah.
greens.
Yeah.
Now, there's often talk about probiotic. How do we get good probiotics?
Well, what is a probiotic?
You tell.
Oh, okay. So the microbiome, that's this trillions of microbes in our gut that are doing so much. And so the probiotic is like an inoculation um, of this biosis, the biotics of microbes. So probiotics are microbes that we will put into the gut to stimulate the growth. So it's kind of like a fertilizer.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, fertilizer. So, a great food for that is sauerkraut. Now, the difficulty is if you buy it already made from the market, it's full of salt, which we don't want. We're salt, oil, and sugar free to have the greatest anti-aging properties and the greatest protection for heart. What else? Heart.
Well, yeah, everything. I mean, inflammation. Keep inflammation down and it improves everything because it's brain health, heart health, whole body health. It just everything. Inflammation is kind of underpins all of the chronic conditions, diabetes, everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep the salt, oil, and sugar down. It keeps your inflammation down. Keep the whole foods up and the processed foods down.
And health is the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can make sauerkraut without salt. And one way is using celery juice as the base. But we're going to put a link on this blog so you can look it up. How do I make my own sauerkraut without salt? That would be a wonderful thing to eat to support the microbiome.
Yeah, and more and more they're showing that even with the fermented foods, it's kind of secondary. It's not like you can just add fermented foods as a probiotic to to have a healthy gut. You really have to do the other side of the equation and stay with the whole foods, not have the processed foods, not have high salt, oil, or sugar in their
Or alcohol.
alcohol, cigarettes, stress. There's so many things that affect our microbiome, that affect our gut health. And so just adding some fermented food is not gonna,
It's
it's
not a
not a
remedy.
magic bullet.
Yeah.
And so it's good to have some fermented food in your diet, but there's the overall picture, it's a small percentage, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah. And another way to get fermented food is tempeh, Tempeh. That's fermented whole soybeans. And they're a wonderful food for anti-cancer as well.
Yeah, and it's a real high source of protein as well. But it's a little tricky to work with in terms of flavor, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to make sure you create a marinade with it to give it good flavor because it has a bit of a bitter edge.
Yeah, yeah. So there's some tempeh recipes on our website.
Yeah, that'll work.
That'll get you started. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So the gut is so much more than just digestion. When I was growing up, it's like, yeah, you've got your stomach, you got your, basically that's to break down all the nutrients of the food, so to digest it. But it's so much more than that. It started to be called, I mean, they're referring to it now too, like the second brain. You know, there's a link between our gut. There's all these neurons in our gut that connect through the vagus nerve to our brain. It's like a second brain. It's an amazing cooperation between these two that affect our mood, affect our health, affect our immune system, just everything. And like we said, it's the home of these trillions of microorganisms that we call the microbiome. And so that particularly influences our immune system, as well as our mood and our energy and brain function. So why does the gut matter? Basically, it's that um, it absorbs the nutrients. That's where the nutrients are absorbed. We put all this food in, but you don't want all your food going into your bloodstream. So it breaks it down into these nutrients, and then it goes through this barrier that lets the good stuff in, the nutrients in, keeps the bad stuff out. And so it, it's absorbing these nutrients, and basically that's what fuels every cell in our body. This is an important function.
Very.
As anybody who has chronic gut issues, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel, GERD, the acid reflux, all these kinds of things, boy, we know how important a healthy gut is. It's a very difficult situation, uncomfortable situation when it isn't healthy. So it's interesting too, these microbiome, these microbes in our gut, they actually produce important vitamins and not minerals, vitamins and essential nutrients. I used to think all of our nutrients came from the food, but actually the food we eat, these microbes eat some of it. They basically eat the fiber, and they produce things like vitamin B12, vitamin K, folate, and really one of their main functions is the way they support our immune system. It's now considered that the gut hosts like 70 to 80% of our immune system. And so what that means is it's basically referring to this filter where basically our food comes up to the filter, it's all these nutrients, and we want to let the good nutrients in. But in a way, that lining is a lot like our skin. The food that we've put in our bodies is from the outside. And now it's going through our system, and we don't want all of that outside stuff in our tissues. And so there's this barrier that is like 80%, 70, 80% of our immune system. It's kind of like a gatekeeper.
Oh,
It's like watching everything that comes and goes. Not comes and goes, anything that wants to go through, and it says yes to you and no to you. And so we have to keep that microbiome healthy in order to keep that lining healthy and all of the immune cells that are in that lining functioning properly. Because when the microbiome gets out of balance, they call that dysbiosis. When it gets out of balance, these immune cells, the T cells, there's a lot of different immune cells, but they're right there acting with the gatekeepers. They can get too active. And that's what we call an autoimmune response. They get overactive and they start attacking things they shouldn't attack. Or if there's dysbiosis, if this microbiome is weak, the immune system can be weak. That whole gatekeeper process can become weak. And then we're more susceptible to disease and that kind of thing. So we want a healthy microbiome to keep that immune system really balanced and working properly, not too active, not underactive, just right. And it's fascinating. I don't know how they do this. It's fascinating how science is able to determine how that whole process works. It's like they're talking now about how the microbiome, these microbes in our gut, are actually training are coaching our immune cells. It's like, what is, it's like they, the way they talk about it, it's almost like these microbes have little brains, they're little teachers. And they go in and they teach these other cells, the T cells and that, how to not be too active, how not to be underactive. It's like these coaches. I mean, how does science do that?
How does the body do that?
Well, that's the miracle of the body. It kind of blows my mind that we're able to kind of demystify what seems just so miraculous. It's really quite fascinating. Yeah. So, why the gut matters is that it's really an important part of our immune system. And like I said earlier, it communicates with the brain through this gut-brain axis, this vagus nerve. And a healthy gut helps to regulate inflammation. So inflammation, we usually hear that, we go, oh, inflammation, it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Inflammation is part of the immune response. You want it in certain situations. With our current diet and lifestyle, standard American diet and lifestyle, inflammation has gone rampant. It's like an overactive immune system. There's too much inflammation. That's a problem. Inflammation per se is not to be eliminated. It's to be regulated, just like our immune system. And the microbiome, the gut health, has so much to do with that. So, yeah, the common conditions that occur when the gut isn't healthy are things like irritable bowel. And that can be caused by stress. My father had irritable bowel, bless his heart, and he was so stressed. I remember when I was 5 years old, he had bleeding ulcers already, and that is so often a sign of that mental stress. And so it developed into irritable bowel, um, lots of pain, and of course his diet and lifestyle didn't help it any. But I think the stress was a big part of his issue, which was too bad. Yeah, so it's a result of stress, dysbiosis, um, antibiotic overuse. So when we take antibiotics, they can be really great. If we have pneumonia and this pneumonia bacteria is kind of taking over our lungs and we could die, an antibiotic is really great because it goes in there and it kills it. But antibiotics are not specific. They're kind of like if you think of a war going on and there is a town where it's been infiltrated by the bad guys. An antibiotic is kind of like going in there and bombing the whole town.
Yeah.
It takes out the good and the bad,
Yeah.
as opposed to going in there with your spies and taking out just the bad guys. Antibiotics are not bacterial specific. So they go in and they kill the pneumonia bacteria, which is saving your life. Good news. They also kill a lot of really beneficial bacteria in our guts. That creates this dysbiosis now. And so now, with the antibiotic saving our lives, it's also created this condition where the gut's out of balance, and now our regulation of the immune system, our regulation of so much is not where it needs to be. So when we take antibiotics, we want to do everything we can to get that microbiome good and healthy again.
Rebuilt.
Yeah, rebuilt.
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. Another one of the common conditions is what's called leaky gut. I think the medical term now is something like increased intestinal permeability. But for years it's been called leaky gut. And again, what happens there is that this lining, where those gatekeepers are, it gets weakened by the foods that we eat, by stress, by alcohol, cigarettes, those kinds of things, gets weakened. They have like Velcro between these cells. It's only one cell thick. This whole wall between the outside, all of this food in our intestines, and the inside, all of our blood and our tissues, is one cell thick. And it's fascinating. These cells have like Velcro between them that hold them together so that they have just the right size so the gatekeepers can work really well. With a standard American diet and lifestyle and stress, this starts to break down and it kind of, they open up and it lets stuff in that shouldn't be going in. And that's what is referred to as leaky gut. When that stuff gets into the blood system, then our immune system, the part of the immune system that's in our tissues and our blood and that, beyond this first gatekeeper barrier, they start attacking that because it's not supposed to be there. But when there's all these food proteins that shouldn't be in there, it throws that immune system out of whack. It gets hyperactive, and then we get these autoimmune responses like allergies and eczema and yeah, all very much related to leaky gut. Other common things: constipation, gas, and bloating. You don't have a healthy gut, it's not working well. What's happening is that the, I'm going to call them bad microbes, the microbes that aren't so beneficial to us, that we want in our gut. It's not that we don't want some of these non-beneficial, what we call non-beneficial microbes in our gut. It's we want the population, the ratio to be right. Then it's healthy. Then it's not a problem. But when the bad guys get to be too much, then we start having problems like constipation and gas and bloating. So that's typically caused by inadequate fiber, fiber being the main food source for these microbes. So these are often called prebiotics. Fiber is like a prebiotic, so you can get prebiotic supplements. We don't recommend them because basically what they are is fiber. And when you take it as a supplement, you're usually getting only like one type of fiber, and that only feeds like one type of microbe. So when you get your fiber from a wide variety of organic whole foods, then you're feeding your whole microbiome. But these are called prebiotics, the fiber that it lives on. And that's what these microbes then make these vitamins. They make short chain fatty acids that help control inflammation. So you need a lot of fiber, and that's easy to get if you're just eating whole foods. Because one of the first things that processing food does is remove fiber. When you go from whole grains to white flour, what's missing? The fiber. When you go from brown rice to white rice, what's missing? A lot of the fiber. And so you eat the whole foods and you're getting the fiber and a wide variety of fiber so that your whole population of microbes, healthy microbes are being fed.
Right.
Yeah, so then, there's acid reflux, there's irritable inflammation, bowel disease, Crohn's disease, those kinds of things. Um, but the good news is they're all treatable with what Connie was talking about earlier. Whole food, plant-based diet, rich in fiber and probiotics and prebiotics, all built in.
Yeah. And let's make sure that you're not eating any processed foods because they really harm the gut lining and the microbiome diversity. Lots of fiber in whole food plant-based. And then what you said earlier, it's important that we reduce stress.
Mm.
And our coaching is about how to live stress-free. So if you want a free consult, please contact us below. No strings. We're happy to show you what we do, and then you can evaluate if it would serve you. And then I exercise 2 hours a day. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, because movement is so important for the gut. It's got all these muscles that move everything along, but walking, bending, twisting, all of that, can you see how that's kind of supporting? Think of when this body was evolving, we were moving almost 12 hours a day. That's what it was about. So we have inherited this physiology that relies not just on the peristaltic muscles and everything to move this stuff through. It evolved relying on actual physical movement to help move everything through too. So movement's really important for a healthy gut.
And then sleep. You know, they're saying now 7 to 9 hours is necessary for us to have great health.
Yeah,
And we do that
yeah,
naturally.
yeah. Fortunately, we our particular lifestyle, we can sleep until we wake up. You know, we're not setting alarms anymore, which is nice. But yeah, that 7 to 9 seems to be kind of a magic number. So yeah, so gut health is central to total health, and not just physical health, but mental moods and clarity, vitality. It really influences our brain and our moods and everything too. So go for the healthy gut.
I agree. And the recipe is a Mid-Eastern quinoa salad. We loved it yesterday.
Yeah, sure
Has
did.
fresh basil in it, lots of veggies, and it was really delicious. And then we served it with steamed greens.
Topped it
Yeah.
with avocado.
Yeah, and oh yeah, we topped the salad with half an avocado. That was delicious.
It was delicious. And so, yeah, if you like Middle Eastern salads, if you like tabbouleh and that kind of thing, my opinion, this is even a step up from tabbouleh. This was fabulous, really
Yeah,
delicious.
really good. And the dressing is lemon. It's so
Yeah,
simple.
yeah. So I guess I'll say too, just in light of what we're talking about, the difference between this salad and a tabbouleh salad is that tabbouleh is made with couscous, which is cracked grain. So that's a processed grain, whereas this is with the whole quinoa. So you're not only getting a whole food instead of a processed food, but quinoa has more protein than your couscous wheat
Ah,
base as well.
good.
So yeah, give it a try. I think you'll like it.
Thanks for coming. See you next week.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.